An absolutely massive weekend in the Bundesliga. Almost every neutral is wanting the yellow and black army to win the league, but there's been countless times over so many seasons where they've failed at the final hurdle. And we're at the final hurdle again. They're going to be taking on 9th place Mainz. You have to simply think Dortmund will get the job done. But let's dig a little bit deeper. Their history in this scenario isn't wonderful. Pressure is on massively. Stephen, you've got so much experience of winning leagues. And
personally, of course.
Yeah, personally.
You know what I mean?
You've centrally been involved in Manchester City winning leagues. This is the dream scenario, surely.
At home as well for Dortmund. I can't even imagine 10 years of Bayern winning it in a row, and Dortmund, like, the weight of expectation must be on them. It must be so exciting but also terrifying at the same time, because I think most of Europe wants Dortmund to win this. I don't think that's an exaggeration, just because why not, you know? And Dortmund are going to just need a real steeliness. They are favourites for this game, you know. Mainz genuinely nothing to play for, sat comfortably in mid-table. Dortmund, with a bunch of, it could be Bellingham's last game, a league game, so at home, and it's going to be a really fascinating game. But the way that the form has turned around since the winter break has been excellent, and if they do this, they absolutely deserve it, and it very much Bayern shooting themselves in the foot as well. Obviously sacking Nagelsmann so early on. I hope they do this, and I think they can.
Yeah, well, after the Klassiker, which was on April Fool's Day, they looked like fool's gold, 4-0 down after 50 minutes. It looked like it was done. It looks like Dortmund were doing what Dortmund do. And I know Bundesliga is probably the most exciting it's been for the last maybe 5-6 years, with Union Berlin going for the title and Dortmund and Bayern obviously up there. But the fact that Dortmund have gathered themselves and gone on this decent run towards the back end of the season and put that result behind them, it's in their hands. And like Stephen pointed out there, it's been a decade since they last won the Bundesliga title, over a decade. And it's there, it's perfectly set up. There's so many narratives going into this one, especially Bellingham's last game. So I think they can do it, but I'm not surprised that there are Dortmund fans quaking in their boots, because we've seen them in command position before, let it slip, and we've seen them, especially when the pressure's on, the shadow of Bayern is looming, them falter at the most crucial moments. But I think this is the weekend where they change it around. They shake up world football, really, and claim their first Bundesliga title in over a decade.
Yeah, and it'd be impressive for Terzic as well, because he definitely has turned it around, because there's so many players that are underperforming, and then the likes of like Emre Can, of course, has been excellent at 6, and he's really given like a license for Bellingham to get forward. And I think Bellingham's at his very best when he's allowed to attack. There's so much technical ability there, and he's been great. And Adeyemi as well has absolutely flied recently. I mean, obviously a big fee, about 30 million from Salzburg, was it? And he definitely struggled a little bit at first, but right now Terzic has been really good at giving him, essentially just finding situations to be one-on-one, and he's been so excellent. And of course, we can't really look past the story of Sebastian Haller, the form since they've turned around. I think with him in the Bundesliga this year, they've played 17 games and won 13, without 15 and won 8. So it's a massive turnaround. Scored twice as many goals, 53-25 as well. And that's obviously a lovely story with his own personal battles with cancer and so on. But yeah, Dortmund are just the result so far this season of just smart management, and they do this, they absolutely deserve it.
They've also just got genuine stars across the board. Jude Bellingham, as you said, it may be his last ever game. They do love him over there. It's not a case of this is a player wanting to leave that they're sort of going, he's leaving us behind sort of thing. This is what Dortmund do. They build players up and then they allow them to leave. 8 goals this season, 4 assists. He's also created 8 big chances. Then he's got Julian Brandt next to him, who I've always really, really liked. Yeah. He's had a lot of injuries over the years, but he's one of these players. I mean, I've got his heat map in front of me, and you would think he plays right wing, left wing, centre mid, right back and left back. He's absolutely everywhere. He's sort of this all-rounded. I once compared him to Ilkay Gundogan, not to the level, but the sort of like...
That's a Bernardo heat map, that as well.
Yeah, 110%. But he's one of these players that he can receive the ball in any area of the pitch, and that's where Emre Can has benefited, because one of Emre Can's weaknesses, certainly from his time in the Premier League, was if the ball is fired to him and he's under pressure, he ends up sort of squabbling with players and giving the ball away. He now just fires it into Julian Brandt, and he's just this brilliant facilitator that makes the game tick.
He's so good, and against, obviously, I've got to see him up close and personal when Chelsea played against Dortmund in the Champions League.
Course,
and in the first game, he ran the show.
Yeah.
Chelsea, of course, lost that game 1-0 at Adeyemi on the break. Gave me nightmares, that game. But Brandt was like the metronome, but operated from the right-hand side. Second leg, he went off injured, and as soon as he went off injured, that feeling of, it's almost the feeling I had when KDB went off injured in the Champions League final when we played you guys a couple of years ago. It's like, oh, they're done now, and he controls everything. I know Bellingham gets the headlines, but Julian Brandt is their best player and has been their best player this season. And if they are to see this through, he's going to have a big game, ask for the ball consistently. That's what he does best, and then operate on that right hand side very, very smartly, moving to half spaces. He's such a good player, and watching him up close and personal kind of makes you think, why hasn't, I wouldn't say a bigger club because Dortmund are a huge club, but why haven't the biggest clubs in Europe kind of identified him or eyed him up, because he is such a good player, and they've just got talent all over the pitch, like you highlighted in the debate. They are such a good team, and they deserve to win this league, and we all want them to finally get over this hurdle and pick up a Bundesliga title.
Mainz fans are probably sat at home watching this saying, listen, we might make a game of this, but from everything I've seen on social media, the rest of the league wants Dortmund to win the game. There are rumours that FC Köln will show the Dortmund game in the stadium and cheer along to Dortmund's goals. I don't know how true that is for sure, but I would not be surprised. In terms of Bayern Munich then, they obviously sacked Nagelsmann and brought in Thomas Tuchel. The feeling was to win the Champions League. They got knocked out of the Champions League, they got knocked out of the Cup, and now they're potentially going to be without a league title. Were they wrong?
Schadenfreude is the right word here, isn't it? Yeah, I think absolutely. Thomas Tuchel is obviously a great manager, but it felt a little bit entitled moving Nagelsmann so early, especially when they were, I don't think they could even concede a goal at that point, had they, in the Champions League? They were absolutely flying, and that felt particularly, it's bemusing, to be honest, and there's an element of what goes around comes around, and it's definitely bitten them, and I don't really feel sorry for them at all, for Bayern's board for that, because it was a rash decision. I don't think it's a surprise we're seeing rumours of the likes of Kimmich being unhappy, because this is very much self-inflicted. Of course, that's not to downplay what Dortmund have done. Dortmund are exactly where they deserve to be, but Bayern's problems feel like of their own making.
Yeah, 100%. And if you look at the sacking was unnecessary. They were in all cup competitions. Like you pointed out, in the Champions League, they're in the group of death. They're in a group that contained Inter Milan, who are now in the final, but Barcelona, who've gone and won the league, and obviously Victoria Pilsner, who are not amazing. But that's a tough group, and they came through that seamlessly. They beat PSG in the knockout phases, and they were really, really, so a side that are warming up, really. It reminded me of the Barcelona side, I think it's 15, 16 or maybe 14, 15, where it was Neymar, Messi, Suarez, MSN, and they warmed up as they got on, and that's what this Bayern side seemed like. But the fact that they got rid of Nagelsmann at that point and brought in Thomas Tuchel almost as like a pep tonight to try and outdo City in the Champions League just didn't make much sense, and they're reaping what they sowed at the moment. And hopefully, for neutrals involved and for people who aren't Bayern Munich fans, this could be the year that where they've slipped up, Dortmund can kind of slip under the rug and pull it home, really, because they deserve it. After like what they've gone through this season in terms of players that they've got, the narrative that surround them, I think Borussia Dortmund over Bayern Munich deserve to win Bundesliga.
Pressure is on for Dortmund. Very quickly, predictions.
I think Dortmund are going to win it at home. The script is already written.
2-1 Dortmund.
Listen, I'm saying draw. I'm convinced Dortmund will win it. They're at home. So much narrative. And if you watch the football forecast, you know we love narrative. Let us know your predictions in the comments.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.